A Chilean red wine produced from a rare grape is getting a second chance in the spotlight, but this time, will it be ready for its star turn? Here with more is WSJ on-wine columnist Lettie Teague. Lettie, thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure, Tanya.
So tell us about the brief history of this rare grape that was confused for a Merlot.
For over 100 years, which is kind of remarkable, in Chile, it was actually the grape Carmenere, which is the grape we're talking about, and the wine we're about to taste, was actually grown in Bordeaux until phylloxera struck in the mid-19th century. It was brought along with Merlot and Cabernet to Chile, but nobody, I guess, recorded that fact. And so up until 1994, everyone thought that Carmenere was Merlot, and Chilean winemakers were selling it as Merlot, and people were buying it as Merlot, and it was actually doing very nicely as Merlot. And then an ampelographer, looking at the leaves, discovered that in fact this is Carmenere.
Incredible.
A grape that virtually no longer exists in Bordeaux.
And these wines are very famous in Chile, but outside of that, not too many people know.
Yeah, not too much. And there was two reasons why, probably. One is that, after the discovery in 1994 and the late 90s, all these wines that were once Merlot, now Carmenere, came onto the market before winemakers really figured out what to do. Because the grape itself is very finicky. Oddly so, almost some winemakers I talked to compared it to Pinot Noir. It's very sensitive. It only grows in the right place, under the right conditions. And so a lot of the times they just weren't handling it right. And the wines came out very green, very herbaceous and very off-putting.
But now here we are 2 decades later.
They figured out what to do, and they're producing some really nice wines, including the two that we have here.
Well, thank you so much for bringing them. Tell me, because in your article you say you've tasted a wide variety of these, from the lower end to the higher end.
Yeah, and the lower end are the ones, unfortunately, you see the most because they're grocery store wines.
Sure.
They're $9, $10. These are the mid-level, both in the 20s, the Carmen Gran Reserva, the Perez Cruz limited edition, both around $20, $22. Really well-priced wines, but hard to find because it's a very competitive category, for wines in general.
Sure.
In Chile, and because Carmenere doesn't have the, the general appeal of Cabernet and Merlot, because again, people don't know what it is, and what it once was not very good. Now, of course, it's quite good, and these are both quite good. So it's having a renaissance, or one would hope having a renaissance.
Well, very exciting. Let's see.
So it has a lot in common with Merlot in the sense that it has soft tannins, it has really succulent ripe red fruit, but it also has this sort of tobacco note and almost a green olive note that's very particular, and sometimes even soy.
That's lovely, really lovely.
We're having the Carmen Gran Reserva, and Carmen was the winery where it was actually discovered that Merlot was Carmenere, thanks to Alvaro Espinosa, who was the winemaker there. Now he's like Mr. Carmenere. He was the one that figured it out. Figured out how to make Carmenere properly.
And this wine is a mid-priced wine.
$22.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And it's the best Carmenere. It's Grand Reserve.
And where can we find them in the States?
It requires a bit of looking, so that's winesearcher.com. There's a wine shop in New York called Puro, Chile, P-U-R-O, and they do ship, so
lovely. Well, we'll have to head down there because I really do like this wine, Lettie. Thank you so much for introducing us to a
My pleasure.
great new
Happy
red
Friday.
wine.